Hello, this is Haley Wazinski, the Physician and Program Relations Manager here at Practice Match. This webinar is all about preparing for interviews. So as we go through the webinar, if you do have any questions, please feel free to email those over to practicepath@practicematch.com. And also at the end of the webinar, all of my contact information will be available as well. But let's go ahead and get started. So just as an overview, we're going to be going over the different types of interviews. You're going to incur also relaxation tips, confidence tips. We're also going to talk about some common interview questions, and then we're going to look at what's next. So with interviews, there are a few different types of interviews that you're going to come up against. So number one, that phone interview. So with the phone interview, kind of exactly what it sounds like, where you are going to be being interviewed by a person. Sometimes there may be two people on the line, but they're going to call you over the phone and start to kind of get to know you a little bit more as a physician and as a person in general. So from here, they're going to ask you some questions like, why did you apply to our opportunity? What makes you a good fit for us? Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? But this is that interview that they're going to use to build up kind of how you are as a physician and as a person, and get to know you a little bit more. With the site visit interview, that's going to be a little bit different. So that's going to be an in-person interview, and a lot of times it's going to be with a group of people. So it's not just going to be that one recruiter on the phone with you, getting to know you. This is going to be more in depth. And during this interview, what they'll do is they will grab people from all different types of, positions at that hospital or at that organization. So depending on how big or how small that organization is, you might have the president or the CEO. You will also see someone from the HR team, the recruitment team. Maybe it'll be that, recruiter who initially interviewed you. You'll also see people from the department itself, maybe another physician, maybe a nurse, maybe someone who is on the board there, the chairperson. So you're going to have different types of people sitting into this interview, to make sure that all around that you're a good fit for them. So with that site visit interview, like I mentioned, this is going to be more in depth. So it's not going to be the basic get to know you type of questions. It's going to be, okay, can you give us an example of when you dealt with this type of situation? How would you deal with someone in this situation? So they're going to ask you some more situational type of questions. They're also going to ask you, some more follow-up type questions of, okay, so you said this is why you'd be a good fit for us. Can you elaborate a little bit more? What did you bring to the table in your last, opportunity? Or what did you bring to the table during training that makes you different from other candidates who may be applying? So those are the two main types of interviews. And then I also threw follow-up interviews on here. So follow-up interview, that can be a few different ways. So maybe it is that phone visit or that phone call interview. Maybe it is that site visit interview. Maybe it's a Skype interview. So there are some different types of ways, but with that follow-up interview, one of the most important things to keep in mind, this doesn't mean that you blew your first interview. You should know by now that as a physician, obviously you are a commodity that they want to make sure that they pick the right one to invest in. Same thing with you, that as you are applying for those opportunities, you want to find the best fit for you, the one that's going to help you grow as a physician, and that is also going to help you to accomplish any goals that you may have professionally. So with those follow-up interviews, it doesn't mean, you know what, this physician did really bad during their first one, so let's see how they do during this one. It means that, hey, you know what, we like this physician, we want to take a second look before we bring them on for another one, because those interviews can be very, very time consuming. So they want to make sure, just like you do, that they are not wasting time on candidates who maybe aren't necessarily interested in them or that they're not interested in. So, with interviews, like I said, there are different types of interviews, but these are those top interview tips. And then we'll look a little bit more in depth into the specific types of interviews. But number one, do your research. So, I've said this to physicians in person, over the phone, and I always get okay, but what does that mean? Do my research. Read up about that organization a little bit. Is this a newer organization? Have they recently been acquired by someone else? Have they been around for 100 years? You want to know some background because more than likely they are going to ask you, what drew you to us? Why did you apply for this opportunity? So if you didn't do any research and you're just going with a generic, sounded like a great fit for me, um, you guys are, a known hospital in the area, not going to make you stand out as much as, you know what, you guys have been in the area for over 75 years, and I would love to continue to add to that legacy of, providing patient care through Christ or whatever maybe their motto is. So by having that more, specific answer, that's going to help you stand out than just having that generic. I applied because you guys are a great organization. Give them some detail of why they are. Let them know, hey, I am really interested in, because that might help you stand out from another candidate who you guys have a similar CV, but you actually gave a more in-depth answer. Also, do your research a little bit on the opportunity itself. So before you go into that interview, whether it be on the phone or in person, reread that job description. What all does it entail? Just so that way you know as well, hey, if I have a question on what the actual call schedule is, or maybe it doesn't necessarily list which location this is at, I want to be able to ask that question instead of getting through my interview and then going, oh, you know what? I had no idea about this. So go through and, reread your job opportunity that you're applying for. Read up about the organization itself. Also, for your interview, arrive early. If you are doing a phone interview, a lot of times they're going to be calling you. You're not necessarily going to be calling them. But for that, what that means is that if my interview is at 2 p.m., I'm not walking around at 1:59 doing other things. I'm going to be prepared to answer my phone. I'm going to make sure my phone is already charged and ready to go. I'm going to make sure I have service in the area that I'm going to be taking this call. If I'm going to use headphones or a headset, I'm going to make sure that those are ready to go. So that way at 2 o'clock when that phone rings, I don't let it go to voicemail. I don't, barely answer it and then say, oh, you know what, can you hold on a second? I still got to find my headphones. Or, oh, you know what, can you not hear me here? Let me try to move somewhere else. You want to be prepared. Also, if you are doing that in-person interview, if you are not familiar with that organization, if you've never been there before, make sure that you're arriving a little bit early so that way you can find the area that you're going to be interviewing. But anytime that you are interviewing in person, you want to arrive at least 10 to 15 minutes early because, once again, you want to make sure you have plenty of time to find the area that you're going to be interviewing in, because you may go through the main entrance of the hospital and they say, oh, you know what, this is on the north campus or the south campus, or you're going to have to go through that maze of hallways to find the area that you are interviewing in. Also, this gives you enough time to run back to the restroom to double check that, your appearance is ready to go. Lets you grab a drink if you need to grab a water or coffee or tea before you go in. But that gives you plenty of time to make sure that you are not going to arrive late. So that is one of the biggest red flags if you do arrive late to an interview. So make sure that you are there early. Also, as you go through your interview, make sure that you're using your manners. This may seem like a no-brainer to most, but make sure that you're not only using those with whoever you're meeting with, but also with anyone that you come in contact with at that organization. So if, you get a call from someone's secretary saying, hey, I'm calling you because they're running a little bit late. They're going to give you a call at 2:15 now instead of 2. Don't be rude to them. Make sure that oh, thank you so much for letting me know. please let me know if I need to reschedule, things like that. Same thing as you are in the actual hospital. If you park valet, make sure that, you're saying thank you and please, you're not throwing your keys at them saying hurry up. Because even if it's something that you think, they're not interviewing me, sometimes that word comes back around. So make sure that you're using your manners with every single person that you're dealing with and talking to. Also, as you go through your interview, don't rush. Sometimes when we get nervous, we tend to talk really fast, or we um, don't necessarily give ourselves time to think about how we actually want to answer, and we just kind of blurt one out. Don't rush through it. If you do need a few seconds to kind of, formulate your answer of how you want to respond to a question, say, you know what, that's a really great question. Let me think about that for a second. So that way you're not just throwing out an answer that you don't necessarily like, but that was the first thing that you thought of. Give yourself time to formulate that answer. Also, as you are going through that interview, make sure that as you are answering those questions that you're not rushing through and talking so fast that it's going to be hard for them to understand you. So take your time answering those questions, in the sense that you're not talking so fast that they're going, okay, can you repeat that every other question? If you do feel yourself rushing, take a deep breath and think about how you would talk to someone that you're comfortable with. Maybe that is, slowing down a little bit more as you talk. Maybe it is just really focusing on your words a little bit more to make sure that you're not um, rushing through every single answer. Also, as you go through an interview, ask questions. Like I mentioned before, they're not only looking at you to say, hey, are you a great candidate? You want to make sure that this organization is a good organization for you. Because if you have any sort of professional goals or um, any sort of questions in general, you want to make sure that those get answered. So if you don't think that this is an organization that's going to help you grow or support your research or be able to offer you things that you need, like loan repayment or bonuses or anything like that, you want to make sure that you know that up front, and that you're not going through the whole interview process, getting that letter of intent, and then going, oh, you know what? I didn't know that was the call schedule. I didn't know it was going to be this location. I didn't realize that the loan repayment was over a 10-year period or a 6-year period. So you want to make sure that you're asking any questions that you have as you go through that interview. So whether it is, hey, you know what? I see that you guys offer loan repayment. What is that structured like? Or maybe, hey, you have 5 different clinics here. So am I floating around to all 5 clinics, or will I be, at one specific? Or maybe it's the call schedule. You want to ask those questions so that way you know, hey, is this an organization that I do want to continue, to go through the interview process with, or is this an organization that I want to thank them for their time, but I want to look somewhere else? Also, with questions, a lot of people get nervous thinking, hey, I can't ask a question. They're here interviewing me, but they're not going to, say, oh, no, sorry, no questions. A lot of times they are going to ask you during the interview or at the end of the interview, do you have any questions for us? Do you have any questions for me? If they ever do say, hey, you can't ask any questions, that should be a red flag for you. Why will they not allow you to ask a question, especially if it's something like, what is the call schedule? Which clinic is it going to be at? Or anything like that, you want to make sure that you're getting those answered. So if anyone ever refuses to give you an answer, take that as a red flag and maybe look into it a little bit more. Also, as you go through your interviews, make sure that you're being confident. It's definitely something that a lot of people struggle with as they go through interviews because, hey, I know I'm going to be being judged by these people because they're interviewing me. And I know that, hey, I don't like speaking in public, but you have to make sure that you're confident throughout your interview. If you come across as, meek or nervous, like extremely nervous, or just, hey, I'm so nervous that it basically looks like I'm not even interested, that's going to come across to them and it's not going to portray you in a great light. So make sure that you are being confident throughout your entire interview with their answers, with any questions that you have. So that way they know, hey, this is a doctor that I feel confident in bringing on because they're going to be able to handle these different things. And then lastly, make sure at the end of every interview, whether it's a phone interview, an in person interview, a Skype interview, whatever it is, make sure that you're thanking them. This is one thing that I hear recruiters talk about a lot whenever we are at shows or in general at career fairs, where they'll go, yeah, you know what? We liked the candidate, but then at the end of the interview, just kind of walked out. Didn't say thank you, didn't shake our hands, or say, hey, I look forward to hearing from you. Just kind of ended it and said bye and left. So even if you think, hey, you know what? Not a big deal if I didn't say thank you, that is something that does get noticed. So make sure at the end of the interview, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to hearing from you. Whether that's on the phone or in person. But that's just another way to help yourself stand apart from colleagues who may not be doing that. So, kind of going into confidence tips a little bit more. So, like I said, this is something that us humans we can struggle with because, hey, how should I be handling this? How can I be confident without, seeming arrogant? So, one of the top confidence tips is look good, feel good. So, whenever I say that, what that means is, if you dress to the nines and you're in a nice suit, you're in a nice dress and blazer, if you feel good by the way that you're looking, that's going to help bring that confidence to you. So if you see, a businessman in his, suit walking through the hallways, a lot of times, hey, that person looks confident compared to someone who's maybe in, sweatpants and a t-shirt. So as you are preparing for your interview, maybe you have that lucky dress, maybe you have that lucky tie, whatever it is, make sure that as you present yourself, that you're feeling good about it, because that's going to come across where if maybe you got new shoes and they're not super comfortable and you just look like you're in pain, that may not come across as, hey, this person's in pain. It may just like, you know what, they're uncomfortable. Maybe they're not really interested in this. So make sure that as you are getting dressed for your interview, that you are wearing something that does help you feel confident or helps you feel good about yourself. Also, fake it until you make it. So if you are someone where you go, yeah, I don't have any confidence, I don't know how to go through this, fake it. Fake that you are the most confident person in the room, because just like any sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, if you go through it and you say, hey, you know what? I'm confident, I've got this, I'm confident, I've got this, the more that you do that, it's going to eventually come through that, hey, I am confident and I do have this. So make sure that you are, not letting those bad thoughts of I probably look ridiculous right now come through. Instead, hey, you know what? I'm confident and I'm going to rock this interview. I'm confident and I'm going to answer all these great. Whatever it may be, fake it until you make it. Also, focus on the positive. This can be very, very difficult as we go through an interview because, hey, we want to make sure that everyone looks interested in us, that everyone is, smiling if we tell a joke, that they are, taking notes in a positive way whenever we, mention something of, hey, this is where I did my training at, or I had research experience in this. So as you're going through the interview, if you have that one person that during the interview, they just look like they would rather be anywhere else. They don't seem happy. They just seem like kind of a negative person. Don't focus on that one person. If you have five other people in the room that, are being polite, that they're being happy, nice to you, focus on them. Because there's a chance that maybe something happened in that other person's day where, hey, they're just having a bad day. So no matter what you do, you could have been the perfect candidate. It doesn't matter. They just weren't going to smile at all. So focus on those positives, because the more you focus on the positives, the better that you're going to feel as well. Also, change your language. So this can be something else that is a little difficult for us at times, because we may be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm failing at this. I'm not doing great. I probably sound ridiculous. I bet that they don't even like me. We want to change that language during the interview and even before the interview, so that way it's positive. Of, hey, you know what? I'm rocking this. I made that person laugh. I have a great CV. I am a great candidate because of X, Y, and Z. But we want to have that good positive vibes, because that is going to help radiate in how we talk about ourselves. And especially as we're answering questions of, hey, can you describe yourself? It's going to change up a little bit from, I'm a great candidate because I think I can do this, to, hey, I'm a great candidate because of X, Y, and Z. So make sure that we're changing our language. We're removing that doubt of, oh, I don't think I'm a good candidate for this position. I bet there are tons of other people out there that are more qualified than I am, or have a better CV, or are better at interviewing. Remove that and be positive with all of your thinking. Also, power posing. This is something that Amy Cuddy did a TED Talk on, where if you notice in superhero movies, the superhero is always standing, legs kind of out a little bit, shoulder width apart, hands on their hips, and they just look strong and confident. Same thing here. Power posing is just a way that you can basically kind of trick yourself into feeling more confident by just posing in different ways. So I definitely do encourage, if you have the time, to go through, watch her TED Talk, or just Google different types of power poses, so that way you can, once again, kind of help yourself feel a little bit more confident without having to do a bunch of, different activities or anything like that. So going back into those interview tips. So with the phone interview, make sure that you're limiting your distractions, especially if you are interviewing at home. We all have things around that maybe we're going to, play with our dog during the interview, or the cat, or hey, I have a bunch of laundry I need to fold. I can do that while I'm on the phone. I can dry these dishes. You want to limit those distractions, because even if you think, hey, I can multitask, why do that during an interview, which can determine, do I get this opportunity or not? So limit those distractions. If you are on call and you have your beeper out or your pager out, totally fine. But don't have the TV on and playing on your laptops or surfing through social media. Like I said, maybe doing some other sort of task. Limit those distractions to just what you absolutely need. So, hey, I have, my pager sitting here. That's it. Also, during your interview, keep smiling. This sounds really ridiculous to a lot of people, but by smiling, that's going to help kind of trick your brain into, hey, I'm happy. I'm going to sound more positive as I answer those questions, instead of maybe kind of monotone, or just kind of bland or upset. So keep smiling, because that's going to come through as you are talking on the phone. If you don't believe me, there are different sort of, psychological studies on that, but you can just try it too of, hey, if I'm smiling, how am I talking compared to if I'm just kind of talking, normal. Also, be engaged during your interview. They can't see you. So if there are really long silences, or you're kind of giving answers, but it doesn't seem like you're actually comprehending that question, they may think, hey, you know what? This candidate probably doing something else during the interview, not super interested. So make sure that you are engaging with them in conversation, that you're asking them questions, that you are giving answers, or if you need to think about it, like I mentioned earlier, maybe saying, you know what, that's a great question. Let me think about that for a second. So that way it's not just that awkward silence to where they're going, are you still there? Did you hang up? Did I lose you? So make sure that as you're going through that interview, that you are engaged, that they don't have to question, hey, is this person actually listening, or did they start to do something else during this? Also, at the end of the interview, find out what the next step is. Is there going to be an additional phone interview maybe? Um, Who should you be expecting a follow up from, letting you know, hey, we want to continue moving on in the process with you, or hey, thank you so much for your time, we're not interested. So you want to find out, what is that next step? Should you be expecting an email, a phone call? Who should you be expecting it from? When should you expect it by? So find out what those next steps are, so that way if you interview on a Thursday, if you haven't heard back by Monday, you're not reaching back out and they go, oh, you know what? We usually take about a week. So find that out before you get off the phone with them. Also, prior to a site visit interview, some things that you want to make sure that you're doing. So with that site visit, that's when you actually go on site with them, to view the campus, to view the area in general. So you want to make sure that before you go on that site visit, you know who your point of contact is. Just in case something goes wrong where, you know what, the weather was really terrible, all of a sudden, hey, my flight got delayed, my flight got canceled. I can no longer take the train because, there was some sort of issue, and now it's being delayed. So you want to know who your point of contact is, so that way if you do have any issues, or just a question of, hey, should I be getting a taxi from the airport, or is there a shuttle? Is someone picking me up? You want to know who that is, so that way you don't have to try to go back through your email to figure that out at the last minute, or try to, reach out to them saying, hey, not really sure who it was, because then you don't seem prepared. So know who your point of contact is. If whenever you are setting up your travel with that organization, if they don't give you someone, ask, hey, you know what? If I have any travel issues, or if I have any questions, who should I be reaching out to? Is it that recruiter that you originally interviewed with? Is it someone from the HR team? Is it someone from a different department in general? You want to know who that is. Also, save their number and their email in your phone. So once again, you don't have to try to go back through your email, figure out who it is. Also, before you are traveling anywhere, confirm your travel itinerary. So make sure that if you are also bringing along your family members or spouse, just your spouse, make sure that you're confirming all of that. That, hey, this is what time my flight gets in. I'm supposed to be on this Southwest flight, this Delta flight, this American flight. Once again, who's picking me up? Am I taking a taxi from here to the hotel? Am I being picked up by someone? Is there a shuttle that I'm supposed to take? You want to have all that confirmed before that day, because you don't want to land and then go, oh, wait, what am I supposed to do now? Also, as you are packing for your site visit, take some extra outfits for the trip that are appropriate. So things can happen. You tear your jacket on something, you get a stain on your shirt because, oops, you accidentally spilled coffee on you. Whatever it may be, you want to make sure that you have an extra outfit or outfits to get you through that site visit, because you don't want to assume, hey, you know what, got a stain on my shirt, I'll just throw another one on. If it's not, professional looking, may not be the best for you. So make sure that you just pack, an extra pair of pants, an extra shirt, an extra dress, an extra jacket, whatever it may be. So that way, if there is any sort of issue, you have a backup. You don't have to try to rush to a store to find something that's going to, fit, or that is going to work for you in a short amount of time. Also, make sure that you're dressing appropriately. So Zizi at Centera Medical Group, we were talking one day and she mentioned, yeah, I've had people come in, day dresses and flip flops because I asked them to meet me for lunch. If you are ever unsure of, hey, what should I be wearing to this type of, um, you know, is it a dinner? Is it an interview? Is it, hey, we're just meeting up for lunch? If you're ever unsure of what should I be wearing, either reach out to that person to kind of find out, hey, what's the, attire kind of call for, or just overdress. It's much, much better to be overdressed than underdressed, because like I said, if you go somewhere and you look really casual, probably not the message that you want to send off So make sure that you are dressing appropriately no matter what it is. So if it's a dinner with the group, if it's, meeting over coffee, meeting for lunch, anything like that, you always want to make sure that you're being dressed or that you're dressing appropriately and that you're not just wearing anything in your closet and looking too casual. Also, as you are going on your site visits, be prepared. Bring extra copies of your CV, reference letters, because one thing you don't want to do is just assume every single person in the room has read through your CV or has been able to see any reference letters. Life happens sometimes. Someone was supposed to sit on your interview, and all of a sudden they got pulled away for whatever reason. So now somebody different is sitting in on the interview. If you have those extra copies, number one, you are going to look like you're very prepared. Number two, you're preventing them from having to, pull out their laptop, try to find, that document in a shared folder, or have someone else email it over to them. It's just an easy way that you can seem very, very prepared. Also, if you had any documents promised during your phone interview of, hey, yeah, I'll bring those with me, make sure that you do have them. So if there were any research articles or publications that you were supposed to bring along, make sure that you have them with you. Um, Also, one thing that I always suggest, email them to yourself as well, even if you've printed them out, just in case something happens where, you had that folder in your hand, you left it somewhere. So have that emailed over to you, have it on a flash drive, have it to where you are able to give it to them. Also, have any questions ready that you may have. So whether it's a question from the previous interview, from the job description in general, or maybe one that kind of popped into your head, while you're traveling over, have those ready. Once again, no one's ever going to say, not allowed to ask questions. But that way, it kind of prevents you from, as you are going through, you're not going, you know what, I had a question, I completely blinked on it, I have no idea what it is anymore. By having those questions written down, it's just going to help, once again, make you seem much more prepared than if you didn't. And then lastly, have an emergency interview kit. This is something that can consist of, a lint roller, a small snack like a granola bar, or protein bar, in case you don't really get to break for lunch or anything, sewing kit, water bottle, mints, small stick of deodorant, whatever it may be, so that way, as you are going through, your day, it's something that you can easily throw into a bag, um, or a briefcase, so that way you have it with you. But also, it's just to help you feel more prepared, more confident, because we've all had it to where, all of a sudden we get somewhere and we go, oh my gosh, I have cat or dog hair on me. Oh my gosh, I feel like my breath just smells terrible after lunch. I need something. Or, you know what, I should have eaten before I came, but I was just so nervous. I didn't do that. So have that emergency kit kind of available for yourself. So that way you do feel more prepared. So then, as you do actually go into the site visit, treat every single person you meet as a decision maker. So, like I mentioned earlier, with, hey, we want to make sure we're using our manners throughout, no matter who we're talking to. Same thing here. You want to treat every single person that you meet during your interview, whether it's someone at that organization, whether it's, the realtor that's going to just give you the tour of the area, the waiter or waitress. You want to treat everyone like they have the ultimate say on if you're getting that opportunity or not. The reason why I say that is because you may think, I went out to dinner, or hey, I got to the hotel, kind of yelled at the bag boy because he dropped my suitcase and, some stuff spilled out. A lot of times that organization is going to check in with people that they know that you dealt with to see, hey, how would you describe that physician? How would you describe that person? Because they want to make sure that they're getting someone that they know is going to be a good representative of not only that organization, but also kind of them. Because they want to make sure that if you're coming on, you're not going to be that physician that as others, come to interview, they go, oh, that's who I'm going to be working with. So make sure, like I said, you're treating every single person as a decision maker. Also, as you go through that interview, eye contact. this is something that can be very, very nerve wracking for people who are not fans of, interviews in general, but eye contact is something that can make or break how people view you. If you are not making eye contact with anyone, it's going to seem like you're extremely nervous and that you have zero confidence. So make sure that as you're being asked questions, as you're answering questions, that you are making eye contact with those interviewers. Also, watch your body language throughout the interview. If you're slumped over with your hand on your or with your head on your hand, or you're tapping your fingers or your toes, you're doodling, you're playing with your hair, you're just kind of staring off into space, that's going to be noted. And if your body language comes across as you're not interested, you're scared, you're nervous, you're not confident, probably not going to be great for you in the long run, because they're going to think, you know what, why is this person here? If they're staring off into space and kind of holding their head in their hand, do they not even want to be here? Are they that bored with us? So if you're unsure of kind of, how does your body language come across as you are, answering questions, um, or, as you're talking to someone, practice in front of a mirror. Sounds silly, but that's a great way to notice things too. Of, hey, I noticed whenever, so and so asked me a question, I was kind of looking, bored. Or I was kind of looking at them like, what are you even trying to say? So little things like that. Also, if you don't have a mirror where you think, hey, I don't really know how to, I don't have a way to situate myself in front of the mirror to where it's going to work, you can record yourself on your laptop, on your phone, whatever, kind of go back through and watch that. And then after you're done with your site visit, thank you notes. This is just another way to kind of set yourself apart. So even though, after the interview you told everyone, hey, thank you so much, um, in less than 24 hours after you get back, either send out that email of, hey, thank you so and so for meeting with me last week or yesterday. It was great meeting with you. I feel like this is going to be a great fit for me. I look forward to hearing back from you. Or, hey, you know what? Maybe that interview, they thought it went great, but you've just had a lot of red flags. You are no longer interested. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to meet with me about this position. I just do not feel like this is going to be something that I move along with. That's just a way that you can kind of start that process of either the follow up process or, hey, thank you so much for meeting with me, but unfortunately, I think as of right now, I'm going to go another way with this process. So, here are some common interview questions that we see. This is not the end all be all of, hey, these are all the questions that you're going to be asked, or you should expect to be asked all these. These are just some common ones. So, um, like I mentioned before, the why did you choose this facility? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself or about the situation? So there are definitely some common kind of questions that you can expect. One thing that I do suggest that even if you are preparing of, hey, you know what, I'm not sure how I want to answer these, I'm going to prepare for it, make sure that as you are answering those questions during the interview, that they're not coming off as robotic or as rehearsed. You want them to still come across as natural. So when they ask you, hey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You don't want it to sound like this is the same spiel that I've given 37 times in the past, 5 days. You want it to come across as natural and genuine. So make sure that even if you are kind of planning out, hey, this is how I want to answer this, that you are practicing it sounding natural and not just a little about myself. I went here for residency. I looked into fellowship, decided not to, stuck with this specialty, and blah, blah, blah. Make sure that it is coming across as genuine. Also, some questions you can ask. So, especially if you're like, yeah, I don't even know what type of question I should ask, things like, why did this position become available, or what's it like working with that team or that specific doctor? Those are really great questions, especially if you're, this is your first opportunity out of training, you're not necessarily sure what to be expecting or anything like that. These are just ways that you can learn a little bit more about that position to find out, is this one that I want to pursue more, or hey, you know what? I'm thankful for the opportunity, but I don't think this is one that I'm going to necessarily see myself at. So then, after we're done with the interviewing, what's next? So you may have follow up interviews. Um, so, like I mentioned before, this does not mean, hey, you failed or you did a really bad job. This just means this is a viable candidate. We want to make sure they're the right one. So, be prepared for those follow up interviews. Also, you may receive an offer. So, if you receive that offer, that's when you have to start to figure out, is this one I'm going to accept or decline? If I am accepting it, starting that negotiation process, moving forward with the credentialing and the licensing and all of that fun stuff. If you don't receive a job offer, this is when you have to kind of pick yourself back up, not dwell on the fact that you didn't get offered the opportunity, but start to look at other things like, okay, I'm going to go back to the job board and I'm going to see what other opportunities are out there for me. I'm going to look at the surrounding area. Maybe I talked to a colleague and they told me about positions that were opening up at this hospital. It's attending career fairs. If you're going to any conferences, trying to make connections there to start talking to people a little bit more to figure out where can you start applying again, instead of just dwelling on, hey, I didn't get this job and now I don't know what to do. Start that process right back over. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to email me at practicepath@practicematch.com, or you can always call or text my cell phone at 314-745-0869. Thank you so much. I hope to see you at another webinar.